What does it take to secure funding? Welcome to What's Next Canada, Canada's premier aging and brain health conference, repurposed for you in a special podcast series. Listen in with our host Mel Barsky as he introduces the investor panel. The moderator is Mary Furlong, CEO of Mary Furlong and Associates. The panelists are Sam Ifergan, founder and managing partner at iGan Partners, and Anna Hahn, senior lead, industry relations portfolio management at the Ontario Brain Institute. Here we go. Now streaming, listen in to this investor panel. What does it take to secure funding?
We're going to move on to our next panel, which is an investor panel. I'm going to introduce our panelist moderator, who's Mary Furlong. Mary is, as Allison mentioned in her opening dialogue, if you're here for that and heard it, is our co-producer for this conference here today. So thank you very much for all the hard work, Mary, that you've helped us in planning this event today and helping us to move it into a virtual event. Mary's the president and CEO of Mary Furlong and Associates, MFA, and is a leading authority on the longevity marketplace. She's a very successful social and serial entrepreneur, creating companies such as SeniorNet, Third Age, and of course, Mary Furlong and Associates. Mary has secured over $150 million in venture financing and corporate sponsorships for companies with products and services that serve the needs of the boomer senior marketplace. Next Avenue has named Mary one of its 2016 influencers in aging. She is also a past winner of the Silicon Valley Business Journal's Top 100 Women of Influence Award and the author of Turning Silver into Gold, How to Profit in the New Boomer Marketplace. Mary produces the industry-leading What's Next Boomer Business Summit, also in this What's Next series of events. And she also produces the Silicon Valley Boomer Summit, next one taking place this June in Berkeley, California, and also the Business Plan Competition. She's appeared on NBC, CBS, and NPR, and is an advisor to the Ziegler Linkage Longevity Fund, Thrive Center, and of course, one of our most active advisors here at CABHI. Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to put myself on mute. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mel. So I'm going to share the topic of our panel. What does it take to secure funding? An issue that everyone's concerned about as entrepreneurs. And we have joining us today Sam Ifergan, who's the founder, managing partner of iGan Partners. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
And we have Anna Hahn, who's the senior lead of industry relations portfolio management at the Ontario Brain Institute. Now, we heard this morning from Jean just how large the longevity market is. And there are many riches in the niches in the marketplace, as we heard in the last panel. So today, I'm going to start by asking Sam and Anna to share with us what are the kinds of investments you're looking for and what is the focus of your investment strategy. So Sam, why don't you go first?
So at iGan Partners, we're very sort of dedicated to the Toronto ecosystem. 90% of our capital is deployed in the Toronto area, and over the last sort of 5-6 years, we've probably invested somewhere around $200 million into projects in the Greater Toronto area. Our focus is in medtech, so we mean medical imaging devices, diagnostics, and software platforms. We start early we work very closely with all the research institutes here, whether they be U of T related entities, etc. And we keep investing in and helping the scientists build their businesses around innovative technology. Our goal at the end of the day is to improve outcomes and lower cost. Everything we do is tied somehow to that. and it has to be sort of a dramatic change in standard of care. It can't be sort of an incremental, and so that's what we look for.
And Anna, how about you?
Sure. So, Ontario Brain Institute, we invest in exclusively in neurotechnology, and our definition of neurotechnology is any technology that will bring advancements in diagnosis, treatment, and management for individuals with brain disorders. Our priority is technology for real patient impact. So we really look for technology that is or that will be clinically validated. So we are not very interested in consumer products. We really want to see that technology can do what it claims that it can do. We currently have 77 companies in our portfolio. About 10% of our portfolio is therapeutics companies, and the rest is almost equally divided into medical devices and software informatics companies.
So, Anna, can you talk about one investment that you've made that you're very enthusiastic about, and how did the entrepreneur find you?
Sure. So, we have a company. We have a few companies actually in early diagnosis and disease monitoring space that are doing well. For example, we have a company developing AI-based technology that analyzes speech sample to detect cognitive impairment associated with dementia and mental illness, and also that can track cognitive wellness in senior care. Typically, the way we get the companies is obviously through network, but also we have open application call for one of our programs called the Entrepreneurs Program. And actually, the application for that program is currently open and it'll close in April. So anyone who is developing your technology is still welcome to apply for the program for the funding.
And we'll share that news because we're tweeting out the insights from today. So, Sam, going back to you, you talked about your investment in Toronto. I've had the privilege of working with CABHI for a couple of years, and it's been a real joy. And one of the things we want to showcase is how robust Toronto is as a creative center for entrepreneurs, but also for entrepreneurs. It might make sense to go to market first in Toronto because it's a market where you can gather the research from CABHI and others, and also you can guide the entrepreneur as they begin to launch. So tell us a little more about the Toronto ecosystem.
So I think it depends on what you mean by go to market. So we think that Toronto and the accompanying, when I say Toronto, I'm talking everything from Queens to Waterloo and in between, and the accompanying ecosystems where with Mars and the incubators such as CBL, CABHI, and other things are really highly innovative from a development of new science and new methods and for standard of care, and protecting those with IP and getting clinical studies done. I think that's an important part of the Toronto ecosystem. Our view is that the Ontario province is notoriously slow at adopting new technologies. So if you mean by go to market is actually sales and revenue, we have found that with our portfolio companies, which we have about 20 of, that they get adoption into the healthcare systems actually becoming standard of care much faster in the U.S. and other regions of the world than they do in Ontario. So our business model has been to sort of incubate these companies in, first identify and find them, and then incubate them, do clinical studies, do our R&D here. But as far as sales and marketing, once they're ready for prime time, we're mostly looking south. So that has been our experience thus far.
Anna, do you want to respond to that?
No, I think I agree. I agree with everything that Sam said. Like it's pretty well known that adoption of healthcare technology in Ontario is pretty tough. Um, in terms of in terms of competitiveness of our companies or technology, I think our like Ontario-based companies are pretty competitive, because one of the things that we also try to do here is we often bring a delegation of our portfolio companies to international companies, especially down to the States. And the feedback that we get on these companies are really good, and investors in Boston or Silicon Valley, they're often impressed with the quality of technology. But as Sam mentioned, adoption of this technology is home ground. It's the area that we need to work on.
If I may add, I totally agree with what she said, and from an investor perspective, it's actually a pretty good opportunity, because we don't have sort of these valuation creep or extreme high valuations that they do south of the border. So from an investor perspective, what we have found is we can invest at healthy valuations, because we have to sort of make the name of our game is making money at the end of the day, but also get a lot of non-dilutive financing and research and development, like the shred and things like that, help stretch the investment dollar further. So, that's why we've been able to attract, I would say 90% of our capital comes from outside Canada. And they have recognized that the Greater Toronto Area is a hotbed of innovation, and are investing into the sector for the reasons I just mentioned.
So, Mel, it's only the second year that we've done What's Next Canada. And what I'm seeing is that as CABHI is an innovation hub and Citrus is an innovation hub, we also have deal flow coming from Japan, from Europe, and we also have go-to-market strategies where we see entrepreneurs who are going to market with Amazon, through the Canadian health system, through the U.S. health system. We see entrepreneurs going to market in Australia or going to market with Amazon. So it's a complicated way to get into the marketplace. It's not for the faint of heart to launch a business in this space. Do you agree with that?
So that's an interesting question, Mary. There's definitely difficulties with all kinds of businesses, but if I could be somewhat self-serving and promotional here for a second, is that by working with groups such as solutions accelerators like CABHI, like Ontario Brain Institute, and capital groups such as iGan Partners, we can strategically help these companies get to that next level to scale and grow. So I think it's a matter of there's starting to be a number of facilities in the marketplace that are helping these companies to scale and grow in new ways. There hadn't been a lot of energy in this for health tech and med tech, especially in Canada, until groups such as iGan Partners started coming around. In Silicon Valley, Mary, you would know that there's starting to be a few of those players. We talked about Ziegler, Linkage, for example, and a few others. So I think it's a matter of finding not just folks that can provide capital, but people who can provide some strategic value on top of it, whether it's assisting with procurement, whether it's assisting with validation testing, which is what we do at CABHI and at Rodman Research Institute. I think it's a matter of finding those right partners that provide a lot of value. And Mary, you're the one that networks us with most of these kinds of players around the U.S. and internationally.
I think I shared a slide with you that shows the types of investors we have in the U.S. So we heard Jean talk about the ARP fund and the incubator. We work with the Ziegler Linkage investment fund. What's exciting about Ziegler Linkage is there's 100 companies that are limited partners that are also potential distribution channels. And we work with Generali in Europe, and Generali bought CareLinks. Earlier we heard how big the caregiving opportunity is in Japan and elsewhere. So we've been watching that. And then of course, Toyota Ventures has invested in Intuition Robotics, and they have just raised a new round. Some of CDW has been very active in this space. Kaiser Permanente, McKesson Ventures. So we have worked with a variety of these players. I don't know if you want to comment on these too, Mel, because you've been working with them as well.
Sure, thank you. You're right. Groups like Toyota, an interesting company then out of Japan, as is Sampo, which is also on your screen here, and we had Albert Chu on before. So groups like Toyota Research are interested in taking the artificial intelligence, the technologies, and something like Intuition Robotics. That's a same technology that's used for robotics and robots that are used to help dose isolation for seniors. And they've taken that same technology and put it into cars, automobiles, where it'll have predictive analytics as to where a driver wants to go or what they want to do next. So you're seeing a convergence of different industries together and companies that, again, provide that strategic value of not just money, but helping them utilize their technology in multiple ways and grow their business. And Toyota, for that matter, is a great example of they're creating actually a complete village, I understand now, at the base of Mount Fuji, sort of a high-tech city of the future, and using these kinds of artificial intelligence in multiple ways. And automotive is a whole industry that will have an important role in the future for seniors as people age. That there will be things such as pilotless vehicles that are starting, of course, now with companies like Tesla, but there'll be more and more of that obviously going forward, and allowing aging adults to be able to have the mobility they require to get where they want to go when they might not have been able to traditionally drive in the past. So that's a great example of a couple and how we're working with these partnerships, where Toyota working with robotics out of Israel, doing testing here at Baycrest and also at JSL in San Francisco. So that would be a great example of these multiple partnerships and adding strategic value.
I would also say something about the Thrive Innovators Alliance, because that's based in Louisville, where they have access to a whole ecosystem of healthcare companies, and it's a demonstration center for technology. And also they have senior housing groups, which will also maybe do a co-investment as we take the company to market. So let's go back to our panel and ask them, what do you look for in an entrepreneur? So Sam, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you, and what are you looking for when you meet them?
Well, the best way to get in touch with us is through a friendly introduction. We tend to get, if I had to try and estimate how many proposals we get, it's got to be in the thousands that we get a year. But we only look at the ones that come in via friendly intro. And so that would mean generally get to know the team somehow, and educate them about your business. And, at some point, we'll take it an interest and start looking at it and dive in. What we're looking for, the table stakes are sort of transformative technology that has IP, and it has some clinical proof of concept and clinical evidence. So those are the table stakes. We've had to work with scientists and help them build their management team. So as long as the scientists can understand that they're not going to be, they're not necessarily going to be the CEO of the company. And so we help them build management teams. And then if they're entrepreneurs, obviously we've got to be like-minded in our approach. And so we're looking again for really transformative, not incremental changes in standard of care that ultimately improve outcomes at lower costs in the med tech arena. So we're not looking at pharma or biotech, anything with molecules. We're more looking at devices, diagnostics, and software.
I don't know if this is before you, Sam. I can interject in there for a second, but Sam and iGan Partners put on an exciting pitch competition this past year called Pitch to Heal, tremendously attended, and we're quite thrilled about the fact that one of our companies, ReadySpec, a early detection tool for Alzheimer's that looks at amyloid deposits in the back of a person's retina, actually won first place in that competition, and iGan went on further, I think, to partner with them on top of prize money. So I don't know if you're going to be doing more. So that might be a great way also.
Yeah, that's a great example because, I've known Eliab for almost 4 years, and we watched his technology develop. It was embryonic when we first met, and we just invested in them $2 million after 4 years, really, and getting comfortable. So it's sometimes a long process.
I think that entrepreneurs need patience and tenacity. Those are key characteristics. Anna, how about you? What do you look for in an entrepreneur?
So we obviously look entrepreneur who is passionate about solving problems in brain health area. But aside from just character of entrepreneur, we like to employ pull model in our investment strategy. So we want to see that this company has follow-on investors lined up after our funding's completed. And lined up we don't mean by fully committed to invest if we invest in this company, but more like we in a scenario where a company comes to us and say, we are in conversation with VC Sam, and he's really interested in our company, but we are a little too early for their investment thesis and wants to see specific product development milestone or clinical validation milestone achieved before they do more dive due diligence on the company. Then that's kind of the financing gap that we can fill in. Obviously, if there is a vision alignment, it has to be neurotechnology.
We have seen some companies this year that have gone from 0 to 25 million in revenue, and we've seen some that have gone from 0 to 100 million in revenue. And it's really fascinating when you drill down and find out how they're going to market. The one that's 100 million is in the cannabis space. Mel knows the entrepreneur. So revenue does matter, but I think you're pointing out something important, which is you have to have this seed stage investors, angel investors, venture investors, corporate investors, and kind of follow-on investors. So you have to know where your company is and at what stage it is and what type of person is willing to look at that kind of deal. Mel, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. It's, I think it's sometimes 50% jockey and 50% the horse, and understanding who the entrepreneur is and their background, the due diligence on what they've done before and what's unique that they're bringing to the table. I actually have a question from the audience that plays off of that and what we've been speaking about, Mary, that I'd love to put forward and answer a question with a question. Here's a question for the panel. What can be done to encourage a more diverse group of innovators, women, people of color, etc., especially when the sorts of personal connections that Sam alluded to earlier are key?
Sorry, Mel, you kind of broke off, so I couldn't hear your question properly.
Let me repeat it again. I apologize for the maybe the internet being a bit glitchy. The question for the panel is, what can be done to encourage a more diverse group of innovators, women, people of color, etc., especially when the sorts of personal connections that Sam alluded to earlier are key?
Can I start with that, Mel?
Please.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we've been doing our Venture Summit for 17 years, and it's in June in Berkeley, hopefully. And we have a current competition in play for innovations in hearing that's sponsored by ARP Innovation Labs. But at all of our conferences, we seek out women angel investors, and there are new investment funds like Portfolio that are intentionally looking for women. And so there's a growth in the number of firms that are earmarking capital to support women. I also want to say something about the number of women who are active in healthcare and in senior housing. So they are the key employees in senior housing and healthcare, and often have a good insight about the needs of the customer, but they may not necessarily know how to find their way into the market. So we are doing sessions at all of our conferences where women can get advice from other women on how to get capital. And there's a growing peer support network, I think, globally toward finding and supporting women entrepreneurs. Anna, do you see that in Canada too?
Yeah, so I think this morning I actually read that this venture fund just closed, and that venture fund was exclusively for women-led companies based in here in Canada. So I think there are support. It's increasing the awareness and letting women-led entrepreneurs know that such opportunities exist. And organization like us, when we have conversation with different entrepreneurs and we know such resources exist, then it's our job to kind of let new entrepreneurs know about it too. So I think raising awareness is important step.
I also think, so we can, Mel, as part of the IP from this conference, share the names of some of the funds and put that into the resources that people will get. Are there other questions from the audience?
Can I just comment on that?
Oh, Sam, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're a real Canadian firm in the sense that they're within the iGan team. There are it's the entire spectrum of people. I think we speak 10 languages and have five or six religions represented between the iGan team, and we have many women. We support the Women in Finance program and donate and sponsor that event via Amy. We have within our portfolio, we have 2 female CEOs. We have the entire spectrum of Canadian nationalities. So we're just looking for the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And it has really nothing to do with your gender, your nationality, even your sexual orientation. We don't care.
Mel, I want to just share that I was part of the internet in the early days, and there was a lot of people leaving Wall Street to join the digital internet economy. I think the longevity market today is where the internet was 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And there's people around the world who've had a caregiving incident with their family, or they're beginning to see the numbers about the longevity market, third largest economy in the world. So we're beginning to see deal flow from all around the world with very smart entrepreneurs. What we don't have a path to is an organized set of all the different funders at what level, but we're beginning to try and describe that and want to encourage that kind of innovation and entrepreneurship. So we see deal flow from Australia to Israel each week. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. No, there's, it's coming from all over the place. One of the questions is, how do these new companies get into the marketplace? How do they get involved with us?
Well, one thing I think would be helpful to everyone is to learn the data from the analysts. So if you take a look at the Ziegler Linkage Fund, there are reports that come out that describe the market. Same thing with Triple Tree Ventures. They have great research, and we should give a shout out to the NIA in Washington, because they are now funding companies with non-dilutive capital to help them create innovations for people to age in place at home. So now there's $2 million grants that you can you can apply for. So it's pretty exciting to see the emerging interest in funders, but we still need more. We need more seed capital, more family offices, and more private-public partnerships like CABHI. So Sam and Anna, any other comments you want to share with the audience before we go?
We have a couple questions if you wish.
Let's take the question and then let them respond.
So here's a question for Sam specifically. What are some of the challenges you see when it comes to adoption of technology in the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area?
Well, you know, when we're talking about the province, healthcare in Canada is provincial domain, and so we're talking about the Ontario ministry here and adoption within on a mass scale. You know, like what we're looking for adoption, you know, on a mass, so companies can get to 25 million in revenue. So we do get, you know, KOLs, key opinion leaders in whatever sector we're in, adopting them in the Toronto area. And using them and sometimes being very vocal about how our products. But when it comes to adopting at the provincial level, it is a very tough nut to crack. And the cycle is very long, and sometimes the cycle is longer than the provincial government stay in power. And then you're on to another group party, and their approach to healthcare is different. So we have found that it has been much easier to get volume acceptance, adoption of our stuff south of the border. And that's just a reality of the healthcare system here in Ontario. I wish it were different, but that's what we found.
Thank you, Sam. We have 3 minutes left. So this question I'm going to modify was, what are the top things you'd advise a startup to be successful at getting funding? I'm going to ask all three of you to list one thing, the top thing that you rate when you look at a company in order to fund it. I'm going to start with Sam.
It depends. I mean, I'll just stick for medical devices for the sake of this. We're looking for really innovative technology that has that is highly protected and has proof of concept.
Thank you. Anna?
So we also look for innovative technology that solves real problem. There has to be a clear market for it and has to be clinically validated. So efficacy is good.
Fantastic. Mary?
I think it's partly the business model. How are they going to sustain the business over time? I think that's a key thing. I was thinking about Toy Labs. Mel, do you want to talk about our winner from last year?
Well, actually, Toy Labs is going to present later today in our pitch competition, so I'm going to let Vic Kashyap speak for himself. Very interesting technology, very novel, that's for sure. So I'm going to let Sam do that, and that's a reason for everyone to stick around and watch the pitch competition this afternoon. In 1 minute that we have left, everyone, if I can ask your top favorite company in your portfolio that you can talk about. Anna?
Has to be one.
You can only name one. We only have a minute left.
Okay. We have Winterlight is our portfolio, doing very well.
Love Winterlight. Voice technology, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I briefly mentioned earlier, they analyze speech sample to detect cognitive impairment.
Exactly. Sam, and you don't have to mention ReadySpeak again, just because that's one of ours that we're working on together.
No, I'm gonna say eSight, which is a transformative technology that allows the legally blind to actually see again. Pretty powerful.
Very cool. Very cool. I've met with them before too. Mary.
Well, that's a very difficult question for me because I will invariably leave someone out. But I'm going to say two that you should look at. One is Embodied Labs and their amazing work with virtual reality and training. And the second is Outpatient, which is an app that you can download on your phone and do connected care. And what impresses me about both of those companies is the way in which they're going to market and how fast they're getting traction with the customer.
Absolutely.
But I have a lot of other favorites, Mel. So thank you. And congratulations for pulling this off today. This was quite a feat. Entrepreneurs need to do the workaround, and CABHI really did a workaround to pull this off today. So amazing bouquets to you.
Thank you, Mary, for also having done the same things and helping us with our workaround strategy. And thanks, Anna and Sam, for being part of this panel and being flexible and doing this in a virtual format. Really appreciate it. We're at time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.
Handshake. Thank you.
The Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation is powered by Baycrest. To listen in and get involved, go to CABHI.com. The podcast technicians behind the scenes are Podtechs. Share your What's Next Canada podcast ideas with us at www.podtechs.com. PODTECHS. Podtechs, your partners in podcasting.